the Borough Park Jewish Community Council is honored to host this unprecedented event and to have the United States Attorney General William Barr in Borough Park here today. This is an historic meeting, and it sure will leave a deep impact on the Jewish communities nationwide, but especially on the communities that are currently grappling on the unprecedented surge of anti-Semitic hate crimes. It is important to note that Attorney General Barr has a long-standing history of defending the Orthodox Jewish community. In 1991, Attorney General Barr was honored by Agudath Israel of America and received the Humanitarian Award at their 70th annual dinner. In 1991, Attorney General Barr was there defending the Orthodox Jewish community, and in 2020, he is here with us once again in Borough Park to make this an important priority to defend the Orthodox Jewish community once again. So we look forward to the discussions about what is actually happening on the streets, what are the root causes, and what can be done to uproot this growing concern. A great area of concern is government discrimination, be it on the state level or on the local level. On the state level, the state is targeting yeshiva education and the independence of our private school yeshiva system. On the local level, local governments issuing zoning laws, targeting Arevs, and banning our visibly Orthodox children from playing in public parks, demonstrating their blatant goals of preventing religious freedom for Orthodox Jews. We see a trickle-down effect from these policies and the hostile environments which are unfortunately becoming the norm. This creates heightened animosity and is often amplified in social media and in other platforms, contributing to the general attitude of seeing Jews as the others. It should be no surprise to see the reality of Orthodox men, women, and even children being attacked on our streets. We are looking forward to the discussion that we will be having here today, where we will get the opportunity to talk about these issues in detail. We look forward to the positive and meaningful outcomes from this important meeting, the ultimate goal being that we should be at a point of being proactive, not reactive, going forward. I would like to once again thank the Attorney General for arranging this unprecedented meeting of Jewish leadership. I believe I speak for everyone in this room when I say I hope we can continue this dialogue, and that perhaps in 6 months or in a year from now, have a follow-up discussion about the progress made as a result of today's meeting and the measures that can and need to be made going forward. Once again, the Borough Park Jewish Community Council is grateful to be the host of today's historic meeting, and we look forward to the dialogue and the outcomes that will be a result of this endeavor.
Well, thank you very much, Rabbi Greenstein. I very much appreciate the opportunity to meet with all of you and talk with you this morning, and I'm looking forward to sharing ideas and getting your thoughts on precisely the issues mentioned by the rabbi. Let me start off by saying I'm very pleased to be joined today by my colleagues from the Department of Justice, Richard Donahue, who's the U.S. Attorney of the Eastern District of New York, and Bill Sweeney, who heads the FBI in this great city of ours. I don't know if you had anything to say, Richard, up front before I...
Sir, I would just, given the task of introducing the man who needs no introduction,
Okay.
I follow my orders. I'm Rich Donahue. I'm the U.S. Attorney in the Eastern District of New York. I've had the pleasure of meeting with a number of you in the past, and it's a welcome opportunity to come here today to Borough Park to meet with leaders of the community. The Honorable William P. Barr currently serves as the 85th Attorney General of the United States, having been nominated by President Trump in December 2018 and confirmed by the Senate on February 14th of 2019. He previously served as the 77th Attorney General of the United States under President George H.W. Bush from 1991 to 1993, and is one of only 2 individuals who have served as Attorney General twice. Born, raised, and educated in New York City, AG Barr has a deep and personal understanding of and appreciation for the cultures and communities that make up our great city. He has long emphasized the unique and important role and responsibility of the Justice Department in protecting civil rights and civil liberties for Americans, particularly on issues relating to freedom of religion. On July 15, 2019, in response to reported increases in anti-Semitic incidents across the country, he convened a U.S. Department of Justice Summit on combating anti-Semitism, an event that some of you were able to attend. There he noted that anti-Semitic violence is especially pernicious because it targets both Jewish ethnic identity and religious practice, and he condemned all forms of violence motivated by hatred for others, whether based on race, sex, religion, or creed. A true New Yorker who is committed to protecting our city and our country, it's my honor and pleasure to give you the 85th Attorney General of the United States, William P. Barr.
Thanks. Thanks, Richard. I'm extremely distressed by the upsurge in violence, hate crimes committed against the Jewish community. And we've seen a marked increase of this violence and discriminatory, the whole range of discriminatory practices up to and including violent acts. We're seeing it around the country. And I think it's appropriate to meet today, the day after the 75th anniversary of the liberation of Auschwitz and the International Holocaust Remembrance Day, to really commit that this department, this administration, is going to have zero tolerance for this kind of violence. As I said before, it strikes at the very core of what this country is about, and I've always felt it is particularly pernicious because it does target people based not only on their ethnicity but also on their religious practice. Now, before we get started, I just want to mention a few things that actions I want to take immediately as we consider and talk about the range of responses that we should be considering. This morning, I am putting out a written directive to all U.S. attorneys' offices, and it will require each office to initiate or to reinvigorate, if they already have taken this action, their relationship and outreach to Jewish communities in their district. And as part of this, I want each U.S. Attorney's office to provide a point of contact for reporting hate crimes to their respective offices and to establish protocols within their office for keeping in touch on these matters with the Jewish community in their district, and also protocols for assessing whether these matters should be addressed federally or whether we should allow the states initially to handle them, but then also keep tabs on what is being done and make sure that they are being effectively handled. So I think doing it on a district-by-district basis and building, in many places, of course, we have these close relationships, but making sure that there is a well-known point of contact to report incidents at the federal level. And obviously each office should be working with the FBI in their districts to make sure that the FBI is looped in and is responsive to these incidents. I'll be talking a federal intake system for these kinds of complaints. The other thing is that I am lowering the level of tolerance for violence against the Jewish community. I think today we unsealed an indictment on that person who engaged in slapping 3 people here, and we are charging her federally. These are the kinds of cases that maybe in the past would have been treated locally, but I think it's important for the federal government to plant its flag and to show zero tolerance, and this will not be an isolated case. We will move aggressively when we see this kind of activity. The other thing is I've asked people to look at the question of incitement. You know, there's this tension between our First Amendment and when things cross a line and become a real threat and incitement to violence on which action should be taken. Now, in the context of the hate crimes that are committed against African Americans, we quite rightly have identified certain kinds of activities, such as cross burning, which, because of the history of persecution against African Americans in this country, have taken on a special meaning, and we recognize that they are symbols of hatred and present, clear threats of violence. And so we treat those because of the history, we treat those kinds of activity with special scrutiny. And I think, given the experience of the Jewish community, obviously, the history of the Holocaust and the centuries of persecution, but obviously, most recently, the abomination of the Holocaust, that we also have to start thinking about some of these activities in connection with that when we assess whether they constitute the kinds of threats of violence that we should respond to. I've been provided a whole list of the cases we have that the FBI and the department have been aggressively pursuing, but I'm not going to take the time to do that. I'd rather hear your views. I will say, picking up on something that Rabbi Greenstein said, is that anti-Semitism manifests itself, obviously, in a variety of ways other than outright violence, and this prejudice is reflected in zoning laws, as he says, and I've been particularly attuned to that, and we'll continue to vigorously enforce the rights of the Jewish community and prevent discrimination in housing. It also can be harassment of Jewish businesses. I know on college campuses there are certain activities underway that involve the discrimination against or harassment or attempts to marginalize Jewish students that I'm very concerned about. So we will continue to combat that kind of activity. More broadly speaking, I think we can take actions in the short term, but one of the things that concerns me is that it's important for us to rebuild values in our society. What scares me the most is when I see the spiritual hollowing out that's been occurring in the Western world and some of it here in the United States. One worries whether barbarism is right below the surface. What is there to restrain human passions? And that's why when I was speaking at Notre Dame, I talked about the importance of recognizing the role of religion, the role that religion plays in our society. There should be separation of church and state, obviously, but we've always recognized that religion plays an important role in making sure that a pluralistic society like ours can move forward without these kinds of hatreds and violence. And I'd like to see that rebuilt in our society. And I think an important part of that is religious education, schools that have a spiritual and value dimension to them. And that's why I've long been a proponent of school choice, and also, as I mentioned in Notre Dame, I'm very concerned about actions of the government in the past, before this administration, really trying to restrict the freedom of religious schools and force curriculum or place other kinds of restrictions or intrude their own secular thinking into religious schools. So my support for choice in schools, and particularly the ability of religious schools to operate freely is long-standing. And David and I worked for years on that during the presidency of George H.W. Bush, and I got started on this under President Reagan. So it's a long-time interest of mine, and one that I'm still focused on. So with that, I'd like to throw it open and hear your thoughts about the issues that you describe, Rabbi, that we should be addressing.